Frank Catalano back here again. We're going to talk for a second about different types of reeds and the difference of where you actually place the reed on the mouthpiece. I used to use the plastic covers, which I love, which are a great reed. I really wanted a brighter sound. Saxophone player Pete Chrislieb, when I was a teenager, actually gave me some. And I got to play with Pete in Tony Bennett's band and Louis Belson's band as a teenager. And I had a Gardala mouthpiece at the time, and I was given the Rico plastic cover reed, and I used that for like 10 years. And I loved it. But then I got a little bit older and figured I wanted my sound to be a little bit darker. And I started playing on the Yamaha saxophones, which tend to be a hair brighter in general. And I wanted my sound to be a little darker, and I switched to the Jazz Select reeds. I think as an artist, not just a saxophone player or musician, but as an actual artist, it's real important to keep a sense of your own sound. I know my voice, people say I sound like Joe Pesci sometimes and make fun of me, but it's my voice. And when I hear myself talking or on the radio or whatever, I know that's my voice. So why shouldn't that be the same when it comes to being a saxophone player, a trumpet player, a drummer, a piano player? You have your own style. These Jazz Select reeds in particular, I like to shape my sound with a little bit of an edge, a little bit of buzz, like buzziness, but with like a crisp articulation. And it's really hard to find something that does all three of those at one time. The Rico plastic covers were great, and they did all that, but I felt like my sound was a little more buzzy than I wanted. A good example of, to me, one of my favorite saxophone sounds from a straight-ahead jazz master is Sonny Rollins, and he always had a fat sound, but a bitiness to it. And so I always liked that. So you can still have some inflection in it, but it still pops. Sometimes people will get a mushy kind of sound if they're trying to sound bluesy or a little more quote unquote old school. But I don't think that's necessary. I personally don't like that. Everyone's free to have their own saxophone sound, but I like some crispness, but just so it's got an edge, but also the old schoolness. One way to get a crispness in your sound, when it comes to articulating, if you move the reed up a little bit so it's closer to the actual tip of the mouthpiece, so it's like flush with the facing or maybe a smidgy above, it will make the reed in essence seem a little stiffer. It'll keep your pitch up a little bit more. It will maybe add a little more color to your sound, but articulation wise, you might it can make that suffer a little bit. Johnny Griffin and a lot of the old school guys like that were Chicago players that used to let me sit in with them. They would actually play like a really soft. I think he used like a Rico, just like the Red Box number 2. It was like a really soft reed because he wanted that quick articulation. You can do that. I use a 2.5. If I'm feeling like I want that a little bit more, I can move the reed down just a smidgy. So when you press the reed to the facing, you'll see like a little sliver, like half moon. It might only be like a millimeter lower or millimeter higher, but it actually makes a big difference. I feel like if I keep my reed flush with the tip, it gives me a good balance of having the articulation. When you actually put your tongue on the reed, it makes a perfect seal then, and it closes. And when it comes to playing fast passages, as well as having like a bite and a bluesiness and a fatness to the sound, if you want the... If you want that really fat old school sound, but you still want something that's going to pop and sound modern. It'll give you that extra edge to it that you just don't. It's a very delicate balance to have, but I feel like these reeds and having this setup of flush with the tip of the reed to the tip of the mouthpiece, I can get that old school fatness and I can get the modern articulation. And it's a really cool balance.